Roll it. Welcome to The Point.
Hey everybody, what is going on? It's your boy Ricky B, and of course Haystacks, the man, the myth, the legend, as always, coming at you with yet another episode 19 of The Point. Still kicking ass and taking names. How you doing, brother?
We're surviving still, man. We're surviving. What's going on with you?
Same here, man. One foot in front of the other, 1 inch at a time, one brick at a time. You know how it goes. So jumping right on in this crazy world we're living in. We'll start this week off, with the point or no point. I don't know if you heard Antonio Brown. He had a little faux pas a while back. And that faux pas got him in a little bit of trouble. And with that trouble comes court time. With court time comes sentencing. So Antonio Brown gets probation and community service after allegedly attacking a moving truck driver. Point or no point?
Point.
Absolutely, it's a point. Everybody wants to know what's going on with this disgraced wide receiver. What a fall from grace, by the way. I mean, can we just say that?
Absolutely, dude. This guy went from the number one wide receiver in the league to nobody wants to touch him with a damn 10-foot pole.
Absolutely. So, from my sources here, the former Steelers superstar was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 100 hours of community service, 13 weeks of anger management. Bless his heart. And, of course, he must undergo a psych evaluation. Whoop-de-doo. All things considered, sounds like Brown's getting off a little easy. Slap on the wrist, if you can imagine. If he had to do hard prison time, his chances of returning to the NFL would have officially hit zero. And in this culture that we live in, with all the privilege going around that everybody likes to talk about, God forbid he was actually sentenced to any time because, then he wouldn't be able to play with the ball. So, as you can see, superstars, people with money, don't exactly get the same punishment as, say, you or I, right?
You want me to go attack a truck driver and find out?
I would prefer you didn't, but I'm going to bet.
I want to try my privilege out.
I'm going to bet, just a hunch here. I'm going to bet that if you did, they would not only put you in jail, but under the jail. So I'm just going to put that out there. So the next big thing, I don't think we need to touch on that one anymore. The next big thing that popped up in the news in the last week, other than the bullshit, is UFC news. When I saw this, it kind of broke my heart a little bit, and we'll get on it in here in a second. But UFC fighter by the name of Jessica I, that's EYE, was visibly shaking during her weigh-in after a brutal weight cut. Point or no point?
Absolutely a point.
Yeah, so point indeed. Now, I don't know if you saw this or heard about this. I think you forwarded me this actual clip here of this article. But UFC, man, it's a hardcore sport in and of itself. I mean, I think we can all agree that the ultimate fighting, the MMA of any kind, is brutal as hell. Okay. But some of these people, when you see, we talked about Nunez last week and her, I mean, she beat the hell out of that chick, man. She's got 2 belts, 2 different weight classes. Now, we talked about also Conor McGregor holding 2 belts in 2 different weight classes. To do that, I don't think people understand what that takes, right? I don't think people understand. In order to drop down to a smaller division. Now, you think the average citizen, me and you, all right, like we need to lose 20 pounds. Okay. Think how hard that is, diet changes, this, that. Now, keep in mind, we don't just do that for a living. We have to do all kinds of other stuff and work for a living. But this chick, I'm going to go ahead and tell you here, UFC flyweight contender Jessica I missed weight She actually missed weight. Wait till you hear this. She was one of 3 fighters to miss weight ahead of Saturday's UFC fight night, with the 4th bowing out before the weigh-in on Friday. A women's flyweight contender, came in at 126.25 pounds. She was a quarter pound over the limit for her scheduled main event against Cynthia Calvillo. Now, we're talking a quarter pound, man. A quarter pound, and she can't have that fight. Now, to understand this, she is currently previously competing in the 135-pound range. When you weigh 135 pounds and you're already lean and in great shape, we're not talking an average 135 pounds for a female. We're talking an excellent shape 135 pounds. Now, you have to drop at least 9 pounds from where you're at. There's no wonder, man, she's standing up there shaking. And I actually saw a clip of that. And, man, I felt really bad for her. She could barely stand up. Matter of fact, she even made the comment that she was sorry, but she could barely stand. Haystacks, my question to you is, at what point, with all the media coverage on females and female empowerment, at what point do people step back and say, this is too much? At what point does the UFC, Dana White, and the ownership of UFC step back and say, one division only? There's no way in hell that's healthy.
I don't. Here's the thing with the weight classes. I don't have an issue with people wanting to drop down in a weight class. But what they need to do is just like boxing. They can't schedule this match in May and tell this girl, hey, you got to dump 10 pounds by June. You've got to give these people 6 to 8 months minimum to be able to cut this weight and retrain their body in a healthy way.
Right.
A lot like you said, a lot of people don't think, they think losing 10 pounds is no big deal. For somebody like me that's a fat guy, yeah, that's no big deal. You can cut a few calories and you can cut 10 pounds relatively quick if you're somewhat overweight. But when you are less than 3% body fat, at that point, you're trying to lose muscle. And that's dangerous stuff, man. I mean, your heart's a muscle. Your brain is a muscle. If you're trying to lose muscle mass, you're damaging your kidneys. You're damaging, your heart. There's a lot of stuff in there that if you're trying to cut it that fast, you're doing a lot of damage to. And I think that's a lot of what we see. Everybody keeps wanting to blame it on concussions. Which obviously concussions are an issue, but I think that's a lot of the health concerns with a lot of these professional athletes, especially boxers and fighters, is weight fluctuations like that, and that quick. It's just it's not healthy. Everybody knows it's not healthy.
Yeah.
But if I was Dana White, if I was going to have this kind of a match, I would at least give 6 months to be able to either add or lose that type of weight. You give somebody a 30-day notice, man. That's ugh.
Yeah, that's brutal. And I mean, I think everyone would agree, bulimia, anorexia, it affects a lot of people in this country and around the world. And I think if you talk to any of the victims suffering from anorexia or bulimia, or any of the family members, they can tell you. Now, I know this isn't the same thing, but it's the same principle. We need food, okay? We need food to power our bodies. And when you're cutting, not just cutting that out, but working out, like extreme workouts and cardio on top of that. Turn on the TV and watch any survivalist show, man. You see just how fast they get weak and how detrimental it is to the human body. So My personal opinion is I think they need to cut that shit out. I think it needs to be one division only. Because here's the thing, there's not a whole lot of long-term studies out there yet for
Right.
MMA. There's long-term studies for boxing. Unfortunately, we watched the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali. We watched him go down, with his issues that were undoubtedly caused by the headshots. And there's numerous others. I mean, so that's a very big topic of discussion that I think is being overlooked by the vast majority of the country just because it's Ultimate Fighting Championship or UFC, MMA. They're not looking at it like, which I find confusing. In NFL, concussions are like all the rage, right? Concussions, concussions, concussions. We have to avoid concussions. And here you got people beating the hell out of each other. Knees to the head, elbows to the head, knife strikes to the head, hammer fist to the head, and nothing's being said about it. Right. So why is it such a big deal over here, but not a big deal over here? And in this culture we live in where everything has, everybody has a problem with everything, why in the hell isn't anybody raising the hell about UFC? And I'm just playing devil's advocate here. If they want to do it, fine, just like football players. But you can't come back and whine about it later, is my opinion.
Yeah. Absolutely. And here's the thing. I mean, on one hand, I feel terrible for the girl because I can't even imagine what she went through in that time period that she had to try to cut that weight, and how far she pushed herself. And you could see it in her eyes, man. She was disappointed not to be able to get that fight. But at the same time, it's kind of a blessing in disguise because in the condition that she was in, to have to fight in that condition would have been all bad.
Yeah. And can I say for a second, real quick, before we move on to the next topic, how many of us in our daily lives, just to lose weight, I mean, go through hell and back, but she went through all of this to get in the octagon and get her ass kicked.
Yeah.
Like she wanted, I mean, these guys and girls are truly warriors, man. And I mean, like you said, I think we're beating a dead horse a little bit, but I'm going to end it with this, man. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be talked about. And I think this is going to be a catalyst, if not for the entire sport, it's definitely for the women's divisions. Now, in the same vein, though, in UFC, we got another topic that's popped up in the last week, which has been a fairly popular topic considering the world that we're living in right now with everything going on. So, point or no point, Haystacks, former UFC star Tito Ortiz joining the police force to, quote, do what's right for the country.
Abso-freaking-lutely point and thank you, Tito Ortiz.
Absolutely. So, point it is. Now, I'm sure everyone watching knows who Tito Ortiz is, and if you don't, I don't know how in the hell you don't. But Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell, the Iceman, had epic bouts from sparring partners to, I mean, hell, go check out ESPN's app, 30 for 30. So I've yet to catch it all the way through. But these guys had epic bouts, man. Best friends, sparring partners, all the way up through championship bouts. Still doing his damn thing. I think he's still got a couple of fights left in him. But anybody in this day and time to go into law enforcement, God bless all you guys and girls, to go into law enforcement right now. Now, keep in mind, he's just saying he's going to. We'll see what happens. But to go into it knowing everything that's going on right now, man, that takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of balls. But let me go into this a little bit. Ortiz, who was one of UFC's earliest stars in the late 90s, told TMZ that police officers are the good guys. And he apparently wants to help get their side of the story out to the American people. He said, quote, growing up as a kid, I was always told the cops are the bad guys. Cops are the bad guys. Cops are the bad guys. But as I grew up, I became a citizen who gave back to my community, and I realized cops are the good guys. The cops are the ones protecting us. They're the ones that are here to help without a doubt, and I want to be a part of that. So, how do you think this plays out? Do you think this is a publicity stunt, or do you think he's genuinely from the heart wanting to make a change and make a difference?
I absolutely think that he's legit, man. Tito Ortiz, he's an arrogant, cocky jerk. But when the guy says something, generally he means it. And I think you're going to see a lot of this, man. Shaquille O'Neal was the guy that kind of started this culture of celebrities, stepping up for their communities and stepping up for law enforcement. And bravo to Shaquille O'Neal, by the way. Let's not forget him. Mad respect for that guy. And for Tito Ortiz, the weight that he carries with his fan base, and his popularity, bravo to him for, even if he never does do it, if he never tries out, if he never applies, if he does and he doesn't make it, bravo to him for even letting the quote slip out of his mouth to have support for the police.
If nothing else,
go ahead.
I said, if nothing else, it just brings eyes to the cause, and that's, like you said, bravo to him for, at the very least doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. If it's just a quote and it's a publicity stunt that's positive for police, that's going out to his fan base, hey, that's good enough for me.
Absolutely. So we'll see how that plays out. The rest is on him. I'll say this: I was told a long time ago, don't believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. So we'll see it. If this comes to fruition, I'll follow it all the way. Of course, we'll report on it here, just like all the other stories that we're following with the Duke universities and all the other things we've mentioned. We ain't forgot about them. We're just waiting for new details to come out so we can relay the message to you guys out there and girls in the Point Nation. Men, women, and children, all of you, love you. We ain't forgot about you in these stories. But the last topic we'll touch on before we cut to our first break, I thought was an interesting topic. So real quick, point or no point, where sports are opening back up slowly but surely, trying to find their way, figure out what they're going to do, finish some seasons, start some new ones. So MLB, Major League Baseball, offered players 80% of prorated salaries in 72-game season to see if the Players Association would step up, take that so we can get back to baseball. Point or no point?
Point.
Absolutely, it's a point. New York, Major League Baseball, they offered players 80% of the prorated salaries in 72-game schedule beginning July 14th in an effort to start the pandemic-delayed season. Now, according to the details of the proposal obtained by the Associated Press, players would get 70% of their prorated salaries during the regular season and the rest upon completion of the postseason under MLB's plan. Given to the union on Friday, the players' last offer on Tuesday was for an 89-game regular season at full prorated pay. The union said it will convene, call players, blah, blah, blah. I can now give you an update that I've learned since then that offer was shot down. So it's back to the drawing board. Not sure what's going to happen. But I'm excited. I'm excited for all sports because it looks as though eyeballs are finally coming open and sports are going to come back.
Yeah, I don't get that offer, though. Why not just go ahead and play the extra 17 games and give them their freaking pay? I mean, in the long run, if you play 89 games, you're only going to lose 33 games in a season. I believe they play 123 games.
Right.
If I'm still doing my math correct, it's been a long time since I've really followed Major League Baseball, but I'm pretty sure that's 123 games in a regular season.
Yeah.
So you're only losing 33 games. Why not just play the 17 that the union's asking for and give them their pay? What's 17 games?
Well, what this, you and I both know, and everybody in the Point Nation watching this knows what this boils down to. This boils down to the almighty dollar, right? Because no matter what, they want to make their money. And I think in the owner's minds, playing devil's advocate, I'm thinking they're thinking if we're going to stretch this out to the whole season thing, not only is it going to come close to overlapping the next season, which seasons as we know it may change from this point going forward. We may not see spring training and shit. It may be later this point going forward, or they may have to cut the next season down a little bit and then follow up with the regular stuff the year after, considering everything. But, playing devil's advocate, if they give them, I guess if they feel like if they play all the games, they're going to have to give them more money. And, people, this is going to overlap with other sports. You're going to see fan bases fall off a little bit because they're going to be more worried about football. They're going to be more worried about hockey. They're going to be more worried about, whatever it is that people are worried about. So I'm not sure I get it either. But I'm more not understanding of why the Players Association wouldn't take this deal, because you're talking 80% of your salaries and basically 80% of a season.
Yeah.
Or a little bit more. So I don't see what the problem is. I'm sure there's details that we're not hearing about that are probably holding it up more so than the details we do have. But I think nonetheless, it's just good to hear, just like we talked about last week with the NBA, which of course a lot of players have spoke out this week saying that they weren't down with the whole Orlando thing. Just hearing that sports are coming back and there's agreements being made and negotiations, it looks like, in a month's time. But I saw some news today that WWE is planning on, by the end of summer, having live events again. We're going to go back to crowds, and things are starting to get back to normal, even if we have just recently found out and realized as a country that the lockdown wasn't necessary. Shocker. So I'll leave you with that cliffhanger and that big smile on that man's face.
Ooh, I'm usually the one that gets into the political stuff. I like it.
So we're going to go ahead and take a quick potty break, hit the little boys' room, and myself and Haystacks are going to come back on the flip side of this break and get back into it hot and heavy. Thanks for staying tuned. We'll be right back.
Join us next week for another action-packed episode of The Point.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for staying tuned. Welcome back from the break. Without skipping a beat, without missing a second, let's jump right the hell back into this. IndyCar news. That's right. IndyCars do still exist. That is still a thing. It's not just NASCAR. But point or no point, Haystacks, IndyCar's Brad Hockaday fired for criticizing NASCAR's social justice policies.
As bad as I hate to point.
All right, so according to the sources I have here, IndyCar fired flagman Brad Hockaday on Thursday after he made a post criticizing NASCAR's support of social justice policies. Apparently, Hockaday had been in IndyCar, been with them since 2017 after previously working for the ARCA series. In a Facebook post Wednesday, Hockaday called on short tracks to end their relationship with NASCAR after the sport made several gestures to support racial equality, including banning the Confederate flag. He said, quote, "Now is the time for short tracks around the country to pull their NASCAR sanctions for their recent actions towards America," end quote. Hockaday wrote in his post, which has now been deleted, quote again, "I would not want to be affiliated with a group that doesn't respect what the American flag stands for. A lot of people have died in this country to make what is being disrespecting, a lot of people have died to make this country what is by disrespecting the flag of the country is a disgrace. Then removing the Confederate flag, dude. I'm not going to read anymore, man. Look, let's go ahead and talk about this. This is a delicate issue. We can talk about it as adults without being crazy. This kind of touches on another point, which we were going to touch on at the end of the show, but let's go ahead and talk about it now. NASCAR has banned Confederate flags at all NASCAR events. Now, Haystacks, you and I know from our point of view, which is not the white man's point of view, but the history behind that flag, behind the American flag, behind all flags. We represent and acknowledge and appreciate all flags that fly around this world, unless they come from communist countries, countries that oppress people because of their views and opinions. Whether it's LGBT, whether it's whatever, okay? This is the land of the free and the home of the brave. We have the freedom of speech. Now, I saw something you said the other day that clarified this. It was on social media. And I saw a comment that you had made on something that made perfect sense to me.
I make quite a few of those.
You have freedom of speech to a certain extent, unless you're an employee of a private business.
Correct.
Okay. So I understand the fact, and only the fact, that NASCAR can choose to do what it wants to do with their organization. However, I also understand the other side and the other point of view, and the fact that they're going to have to understand that there's going to be consequences for their decisions. Now, I want to hear first and foremost how you feel about Hockaday being terminated and how you feel about the rest of the issue.
Personally, I think all this cancel culture crap is nonsense. If people would stop and, instead of thinking with race and thinking with emotions, and most of all, stop thinking like you're told to think,
Right.
they would really be amazed what they would actually learn about real world and reality. Everybody complains about the Confederate flag, this, Confederate flag, that. It stands for racism. It's not necessarily true. A very high percentage, stick with me, folks, I'm sorry, we're usually a sports show, but I'm going to give everybody listening a little bit of a history lesson here. A high percentage of the men that fought for the Confederacy not only opposed slavery, but really didn't even want anything to do with the war. Robert E. Lee himself is quoted as saying, "If it would avoid war, I would more than happily free every Southern slave in the nation." While it took Abraham Lincoln 3 years into the Civil War to decide to make an executive order for the Emancipation Proclamation.
Right.
Now, I believe it's around 78%. Somebody wants to me, point is what, at gmail.com. But I believe it's about 78% of people that fought for the Confederacy were poor farmers. These farmers were making about 46 cents or $46 a month as farmers. And then General Sherman rode through the South and torched these people's businesses, their livelihoods, their livestock, their homes, everything, whether they own slaves or not. And then what happens? Here comes the Confederacy calling, saying, "Hey, we will pay you $121.50 a month to come fight for the Confederacy." You just lost your house, you just lost your farm, you just lost every bit of cattle that you had, all your livestock, your entire livelihood is gone. And all you got to do is pick up a gun, and you can make almost 3 times what you were just a few days ago. Not to mention, you just lost your entire livelihood because you live somewhere. Not because you own slaves and not because you're racist, because you live somewhere. Your entire livelihood. So let's kill that whole narrative about the flag. As far as, what people say, what people do, This man, yes, he was an employee. And yes, employees can fire people as they will. But this man was on his personal time, not on NASCAR's clock, and voiced his opinion, which is his First Amendment rights. NASCAR is absolutely in the wrong for this. Whether they want to be in their fields or not, they're absolutely wrong. Now, if this man was going, instead of waving the checkered flag, was waving a rebel flag and screaming out slurs while on the clock, absolutely. Fire him and send him to the wolves. This man was on his personal time speaking his personal opinion. America, we are founded on the freedom of freaking speech. If you don't agree with somebody's opinion, you have two options. Ignore it or come up with a counterpoint that is coherent enough to get your point across in a civilized way. If that doesn't work, guess what? It's no big deal. Ignore it and move on.
Yeah. See, I agree. I agree 100%. One thing I want to point out is this. I can speak for myself and Haystacks both when I can say we are unapologetically American. We are unapologetically not racist. We are unapologetically not sexist. We are unapologetically realist. And the realism of this is simply put, freedom of speech, I'm afraid, is not necessarily free for some anymore. Now, I want to speak to the Confederate flag, and this is a big, big time moment here. For those of you that know me, and I'm not going to say anything controversial, I'm just going to tell you the truth. There are people that use the rebel flag while they are voicing their racist views. Okay? That may give you the perception, if you only pay attention to those mindless few, that flag represents racism. And it may at that particular moment, but it does not. The reason that flag exists is not in any way founded on racism in any way, shape, or form. No more so than a certain other country using their flag for an extremist or terrorist using their flag in the background of a beheading video does not make that entire country a bad country. And that is the point and the message that needs to be gotten across. The American flag is not a bad flag. The Confederate flag is there. There's not well, there is a couple of flags on this planet, but I'm not touching that. Not today. Not here.
I will. I will. Here's the difference. Here's the difference. The Nazi flag, I know what they're trying to make this big comparison. The Nazi flag was an evil regime that killed people based on their race alone and wanted world domination.
My ancestors.
My grandfather fought the Nazis. My grandfather fought the Japanese. My grandfather also fought in the First World War. My great-grandfather fought for the North. My other great-grandfather, he was that poor farmer that had his farm burnt and fought for the Confederacy. So, again, mind you, my grandfather also never owned slaves. He was just a poor farmer. They got caught up in a really crazy situation.
Right.
Yes, there have been racist acts and there have been murders committed under the Confederate flag. Can't deny that. But there have also been murders committed under the American flag. There have been murders committed under the Canadian flag, the Mexican flag, the French flag, the Russian flag, there isn't really a country on the face of the planet that hasn't committed some form of a murder under their flag. That's the way things work. That's the way it has evolved over the years. For the people that are sitting here in agreement that, you know, the American flag is so terrible because we came over and we took that land, okay? So do you do the same for Mexico? Because that's how the Latino culture came about. The Spanish came from Mexico and conquered the Aztecs up in the southern portion of America as well. It's the same difference. You just don't want to say anything because, well, we won't go there. You can't let your opinion slide one way or the other based on, I believe in this country, the last time that I looked at the NAACP roster, there's about 4,300 members of radical skinhead, neo-Nazi, and racist groups in this country. And I can't really remember what the number of citizens in this country is. I believe it's well in the 60, 70 some millions. If you're concerned about 4,300 people in a country this big, you're the problem.
Simply put, I think you said it all. There's not a flag on this country that has not been misrepresented.
Absolutely.
And we can go through, and this is a topic that we could spend a whole show on in itself. But how about this? All flags aside, all races aside, all professions aside, all sports aside, how about we all pull our heads out of our asses as a country? Okay? When does the pandering stop? When is it finally going to be good enough? Haystacks, you know the answer. I know the answer. I mean, we've saw recently with cartoons that, hell, Elmer Fudd can't even have his damn gun in the cartoon anymore. We've seen Yosemite Sam, he can't have his guns anymore. Friggin' children's cartoons, stuff that we were all raised on that causes no harm whatsoever.
You guys let them cancel freaking Paw Patrol because a cartoon dog wears a badge.
It's disgusting.
Are you kidding me right now?
It's absolutely disgusting.
Out of all the shows that are on television right now, and you pick Paw Patrol, you are a special kind of freaking idiot.
I can turn almost any channel on my TV, and I can see sex. Okay, I can see heterosexual sex. I can see gay sex. I can see lesbian sex. I can see any number of those things. I can see murders, blood and guts. I can see drug deals. I can see cops being murdered on television. But I cannot watch Paw Patrol because he has a badge. Let that sink in for a second. So, again, because of time, we got to move on. But I think that speaks for itself. I think that speaks for itself. Now, I wasn't there. I don't know the full details. I don't know what else was said. It could have been anything. But Hockey Day, we wish you all the best. NASCAR, all I can tell you is you might want to pull your heads out of your asses because it's not just that issue that's causing all your problems. We all know the problems have been there. And leading up to this point, all this is a jump the shark moment to try to pander, to get more people in, more views in, to get those ratings up. And it's not going to work. You're going to see in the short term, it's not going to happen. So apparently, moving on, big news in the WWE. There's been a power shift, if you will, depending on who you are, whether or not you want to believe that. It's the truth. So point or no point, WWE talent reportedly concerned with Paul Heyman no longer running Raw.
Definitely a point.
Yeah, so we remember and we heard, I think we covered it. No, we alluded to it or at least talked about it with the Brock Lesnar situation. For those of you who don't know, Paul Heyman's both under a talent contract, and he was also under, I believe the official title was head writer or head of creative for Monday Night Raw for the WWE, the World Wrestling Entertainment. Now, Paul Heyman, we all know, is a genius of the professional wrestling world. His mind is like no other. And I know a lot of people don't like him, and yes, he's an asshole, but so am I. Jim Cornette. Okay? Both of them have great wrestling minds. They can't stand each other. I'm sure they have their reasons, and they'll, like minds usually don't, and big egos like that. But Paul Heyman apparently was not. It's not that he wasn't getting the job done. And I want to preface this real quick. Anybody who's ever been in any position in their life where there's a hierarchy or a structure, when you are at this point here, you're like, if I get promoted to here, I can finally make some change. And then you get there. And then you go, shit, okay, I can't really do anything. And you think, but if I get here, then I can finally make some change. The problem with that is, it's like any other pyramid scheme or like any other structure. Unless you're the guy up here, you can't make any changes. So the problem, as it seems, that seems to persist is Vince McMahon. This is the one common thread in all of this. Paul Heyman was doing an excellent job. However, you can only do what your boss approves.
Right.
So if you come up with a great idea, me and you in the promo entertainment world, we come up with a great idea. We get with that business owner and we say, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is what we'd like to do. And everybody around you can be like, oh, yeah, that's epic. It's never been done before. If that owner doesn't go for it, guess what? It's not going to happen. And this is what happened with Paul Heyman. And apparently there's a lot of talent really upset with not only Vince McMahon, but Paul Heyman as well, because they think, and they've been told, that certain instances were him. Basically, Paul Heyman's been used as a scapegoat. My sources here. A lot of talent in WWE Raw brand are reportedly concerned with Paul Heyman being removed as the head of creative for Monday Night Raw, according to, of course, Dave Meltzer, so take that with a grain of salt. In the latest issue of his Wrestling Observer newsletter, he said, according to the newsletter, Heyman had pushed Vince McMahon on the idea that it would take 18 months or longer to create credible new stars, as the company had been failing, of course, to push new talent to the top. And I think we can all agree with that. Okay? What is everybody tired of? They're tired of the Roman Reigns. They're tired of the Seth Rollins. They're tired of the same shit week after week after week. 200 talent in the locker room and you're using 5 of them. That's always been their problem. So apparently, Heyman took over as creative head of Raw in June 27th of last year, and his employer contract was terminated less than 12 months later, this past week, of course. But of course, keep in mind again, he is a talent, so he will still be appearing on TV. As of this past week, he was still a performer under a performer's contract. Haystacks. We all know Heyman ECW days, he was the king of pushing new talent. The Jerichos, the Mysterios, the Benoits, and several other people. Now, when is this going to end?
When Vince McMahon, well, everybody go watch CM Punk's pipe bomb. That pretty much tells you when it's going to end. And watch it the full way through, because his comments on Triple H might be holding true as well. Look, here's how you fix WWE. So Vince, Stephanie, Shane, everybody, if somebody happens to share this on Twitter and it catches their eye, this is how you fix the WWE. You take Raw, that has been your flagship show for 30 plus years now, I want to say 20, 30 years.
Long time.
You put Raw exclusively on the WWE Network. All I know, you're going to lose your USA money. Hear me out. You take your superstars that are willing to drop this PG nonsense and you put them on Raw. Your superstars that choose to or you think are PG superstars, you put them on SmackDown. Keep SmackDown on Fox. It's a great move. It's national TV. Even people that don't have basic cable can watch Fox on an antenna. Make that your PG show for all to see. All the kids, all your merchandising. It's still going to be there on a national level. It's fine. Trust me. So you take your Raw roster and take them back to the TVMA days, the Attitude Era. Everybody liked. Not only is it on the WWE Network that children cannot buy without a parent's approval or credit card, but you also can put a warning on there to let the parents know that this probably isn't something that your kids should watch. You bring back the fans that you alienated trying to sell the Fruity Pebble John Cena crap to little kids, and you bring back all the grown men like myself that are spending $500 on your replicas instead of spending $30 on a John Cena t-shirt. Problem solved, right?
You would think.
You get your ratings, you get your views, plus, you know, I understand you're going to lose your USA money, but at that point, if you got people like myself that are actually paying for your WWE Network, I would be more than happy to pay $14.99, $19.99 a month to be able to see the old Attitude Era come back.
Right. And, you know, I think the point you're trying to make is a very valid point, and the point is simply put, the PG shit ain't working, man.
It is not.
It's not working for the diehard fan. Now, it's working for the kids. Now, look, I understand the business model, okay? I understand the money-making process. I understand the kids. Those are where you're selling your T-shirts. Those are where you're selling your wristbands. That's where you're selling your baseball caps. You know, every other piece of apparel they sell, the gloves, all of that. I get it. I get it. Daddy, mommy, take me to the show. You get to the show, daddy, mommy. And have you seen how much they charge for the shit? I mean, I've been to a number of shows over the years. And I don't just go sit anywhere. I buy front row tickets. I spend money. And I mean, I've got several T-shirts in my collection over the years where I take a break, go up, use the potty, and then hit the damn stand. And I'm like, hey, man, how much for that shirt right there? And he's like, $45. I'm like, holy shit, man. You know, $45 for a damn T-shirt. So I get that that's where they get their money from, and the PG and, you know, these networks like the USA Network and stuff, that's what they're looking for. But here's what I don't understand. We just touched on this a minute ago, and I'll never understand this shit as long as I live. Maybe you can help clarify this for me. Again, I can turn on the television. I can see cops being murdered. I can see kids being murdered. Law and Order. I can turn Law and Order on and see a little girl laying in the ditch, bloody, mangled mess. I can watch cops being murdered. I can watch sex in any form I want to see it on cable. But when I turn on professional wrestling, that's right, Vince, professional wrestling, I have to watch PG shit where they can't even bleed. What am I missing, Scotty? Why would USA say, all right, we want PG, but yet coming up afterwards, Law and Order is going to come on where some dude's guts are laying out on the side of the road in downtown New York. Doesn't make any damn sense.
I really thought from reading emails between Fox executives and WWE executives that Fox was going to be the ones that were going to push SmackDown in that area.
I did too.
But we went right back to the same cancel culture bullcrap. You know, the furthest that we went was a regurgitated bullcrap storyline with Bobby Lashley and Lana that you did 20 years ago with Edge and Lita.
They did way better. 10
years prior to that with Goldust and Marlena and Brian Pillman, that you did 10 years prior to that with Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. Come on.
Can I just go ahead and say this right here? The absolute shittiest storyline I have ever seen in WWE. That was not believable in any way, shape, or form.
Definitely top five. Definitely top five.
I'll say this, and unfortunately, due to time, this is going to have to be our last topic, but it's a good one. So let's talk about it. I think the disconnect is you got WWE wanting to sell merchandise to kids, right? What is the demographic as far as we've heard it for years? It's ingrained in anybody's mind who's a wrestling fan. What is the demographic of what they're looking for in ratings? The demographic that watches men between the ages of 18 and 34. Nobody in that age range, red-blooded American males of all shapes, sizes, and colors and creeds, they don't give two shits about PG. Those are the ones that are telling you they don't want to see it. Now, you have people like myself, the Backlash pay-per-view. Out of morbid curiosity, I watched it, and I was mortified. The show sucked. The only thing worth watching, and God bless Braun Strowman, I love him to death, but even that match sucked. The only thing that I watched that I enjoyed was Randy Orton and Edge. That was the only thing I watched, and it was lackluster as well, to a certain extent.
I didn't get to watch it, but I heard that the match that stole the show was Street Profits and Viking Raiders.
It was the shittiest thing I ever saw in my life. And really? I'm just being honest. I'm not just being an asshole. They were fighting ninjas. They were fighting together, ninjas. Not in the ring, but all over hell and creation, fighting ninjas. It was the most hokey shit I've ever seen in my life. And when they finally got down to brass tacks and had their match, they completely lost my interest. I couldn't even tell you who won. Couldn't care less. But when you saw they hyped up Edge and Orton's matches, the greatest wrestling match ever, and it hadn't even happened yet. It's so ass backwards, man. And don't get me wrong, Edge and Orton put it all out there on the line, and there was no doubt in my mind that was going to be a damn instant classic. We all know, if you haven't known, we'll report it right here for those of you who hadn't heard yet. Edge tore his tricep, apparently. Some are saying that's being, storylined out. It may be at work, it may not. I watched the match twice to look through. I couldn't see where the tear happened. Doesn't mean it didn't. But if it is a true injury, you know how that works. 8 months out, it'll be a while before he comes back, and that's a shame. It's not his neck, tricep. But it wasn't the greatest match ever. And you would expect two veterans like that to put on the best match. But it was the main event.
I can
Again.
tell you, it looks like that it's legit because when I was sitting at break today, yes, folks, I actually do work a 40-hour-a-week job, believe it or not. On the TV, they had Raw on, and Randy Orton challenged Christian at SummerSlam. And it looked like he accepted. So it does look like it's legit, and they're trying to kind of go for the old tugging at the heartstrings, Randy Orton picking on Christian type thing. So it does look like that's the direction that they're going.
Yeah, it could be a number of things. They could be setting up Edge and Christian. You know, it could be any number of things. But me and you know, we can understand that scenario. We can understand the friend and yeah.
A few times.
Stay tuned, folks. But you know, but
Can we do the old Bret Hart?
That's right. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Gotcha. There it is. Stay tuned.
Shout out.
That's a little Easter egg for you fools that actually pay attention all the way to the end, huh? So anyway, we're running way the hell over. Haystacks, it's been a great episode as always, and I do believe it's my turn to drop the point on that ass. So
anybody didn't watch, if you didn't watch anything, if you skipped through the entire show last week, please, for the love of God, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on Facebook, on my personal page, look me up, Scotty Newland. I don't care. You can know my real name. Or right here on the point. Watch the point. Watch the very end and try to understand. I thought it was pretty good. We're sitting at about 200 views right now on Facebook and Twitter, so it's gaining a little bit of ground.
Yeah, listen. Let's all get along, all right? Let's try to do this damn thing right. We got one shot. We got a whole country of kids, a whole generation of children that are looking at us. You know what? We're not going to be here forever. We can fight, bitch, and complain and argue with each other all we want to, but we are going to return to the earth from which we came. And it's all about legacy, right? It's all about honor, respect, and integrity and all that shit. And I'm not Tony Robbins, so I'm going to jump off here. Haystacks, it's been another great-ass episode. I appreciate you, brother, as always. But I got to roll because it's time to drop the point on that ass. Until next week. Wow. What another great episode, man. Episode 19. I cannot be happier. We are grateful and humbled and honored for every one of you guys still watching our show. And believe me when I tell you the best is yet to come. Now, what is the point for this week? Well, again, we're going to try to keep it simple for you so everyone watching can understand. Life is short. You heard towards the end of the show when I said, simply put, can't we all just get along? That's not a cliche. I know you heard it before, and some of you may be giggling right now, but the truth of the matter, the fact of the matter is exactly what I just said before. We're only on this earth for a short time. It's about legacy. It's about honor. We have a whole bunch of little ones, little tykes, or as my grandfather would say, peeweegens, that are looking up to us. Let's try to leave our mark on this world a little bit more than a skid mark. A little bit more positive. Let's put some smiles on each other's faces. Let's truly hold hands. Let's lock arm in arm from coast to coast and around the world, from Canada to Mexico, all the way around the world and back, that we can actually get along and do something right in this country other than bitch, fight, argue, and complain, and kill. And that goes for all. Black, white, brown, blue, or somewhere in between. We are all one race. And that is simply put the human race. If nobody else in this world loves you or has your back, this guy right here does. Oh, and that other guy, Haystacks, yeah, he's right there with us. See you next week.
Thank you for watching The Point.
Goodbye, cruel world.